She sat at the corner table of the small, bustling cafe, fingers nervously tapping on the edge of her coffee cup. The aroma of roasted beans mixed with the chatter of morning patrons, but none of it penetrated her thoughts. She couldn't shake the anticipation, the strange mixture of excitement and dread that made her stomach twist in knots. "Are you sure he's here?" her friend asked quietly, glancing around the room. Her voice carried just enough concern to make her hesitate, yet she nodded, hardly daring to meet her friend's eyes. "Yeah, he said he'd be here around this time," she whispered back, her voice barely audible over the hum of conversation. She stole a glance at the entrance, scanning the crowd of strangers. Her pulse quickened when she saw him, a tall, confident figure in a crisp jacket, moving through the cafe with an effortless grace. He looked ordinary at first glance, but there was something in the way he carried himself, the subtle awareness in his eyes, that made her heart skip. She turned back to her friend, cheeks warming. Can you kiss me? He's here," she said, the words escaping before she could stop them. Her friend froze, eyes wide, but the urgency in her tone left no room for hesitation. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she leaned in, pressing her lips to hers in a quick, impulsive kiss. It was brief, but the impact was electric. The warmth of the moment clashed with the tension in the air, leaving her momentarily breathless. Pulling back slightly, she straightened in her seat, glancing nervously at the entrance again. The man was closer now, standing near the counter, seemingly unaware of the tiny storm he had just stirred. She tried to focus on something mundane, the menu, the barista, but every nerve in her body screamed for her attention to him. Her thoughts raced. Why did she feel so exposed, so vulnerable? And yet, there was an odd thrill in the risk, in the secrecy of the moment. She didn't know his intentions, didn't even fully know him, and still, something about his presence made the world shrink to just the two of them in that noisy cafe. Her heart pounded, each beat louder than the last. She wanted to flee, to hide behind the comfort of routine, but her curiosity, her desire to understand the man who had unknowingly become the center of her thoughts, rooted her to the spot. She watched him carefully, pretending to sip her coffee while her mind raced. He moved with effortless composure, scanning the cafe as if he belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Every step he took made her pulse quicken, though she told herself it was just nerves, nothing more. Her friend nudged her subtly. "You should talk to him," she whispered, voice low but insistent. The words sent a jolt through her chest. Talk to him. What could she possibly say without sounding foolish, without revealing how completely captivated she was? Summoning her courage, she pushed back from the table and took a few careful steps toward him. Each footfall felt amplified, echoing in her own ears, betraying the storm inside her. He looked up as she approached, and for a heartbeat, her carefully rehearsed words evaporated. His eyes, sharp, knowing, and impossibly calm, met hers, and she felt an unexpected jolt of recognition. There was something familiar, almost intimate, in the way he regarded her. "Hi," she managed, her voice slightly trembling. I wasn't expecting to see you here." He smiled, a subtle curve of his lips that sent a shiver down her spine. "Neither was I," he replied smoothly, his tone casual yet magnetic. "But sometimes, the unexpected moments are the most interesting, don't you think?" She nodded, her mind struggling to catch up with her racing heartbeat. "Yes, interesting," she echoed, almost laughing at how ridiculous it sounded. He leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice just enough to make her feel like they were in their own private bubble. "You seem different from what I imagined." There was a pause, almost teasing, but not unkind. "More alive, somehow." Her cheeks warmed. She wasn't sure if it was the compliment or the intensity of the moment. She opened her mouth to reply, then hesitated. How could she explain that she had no idea who he really was, that she had just acted on a fleeting impulse? Instead, she settled for a nervous smile, trying to mask the sudden vulnerability that gripped her. "Well, life is full of surprises," she said softly, hoping the words sounded natural. He studied her for a moment longer, his gaze sharp yet unreadable, and then, almost imperceptibly, nodded. "Yes, it certainly is." She stayed seated, clutching her coffee cup a little too tightly, trying to steady the rapid thump of her heartbeat. He had moved to the counter to place his order, but she couldn't take her eyes off him. There was something about the way he interacted with the barista, calm, commanding without being overbearing, that made her pulse quicken even more. Her friend leaned in, whispering, "He's not just anyone, you know." The words sent a shiver down her spine. "I know," she whispered back, though part of her wondered how much she actually knew. Suddenly, he turned, his gaze sweeping across the cafe, and for a split second, their eyes locked again. That moment, fleeting as it was, felt charged with unspoken tension. It was as if he could see right through her, reading every flicker of nervousness, every hidden thought. She looked away quickly, pretending to focus on her cup, but the warmth in her cheeks betrayed her. When he finally approached, coffee in hand, her breath caught. He stopped just a few feet away, close enough for her to notice the faint scent of his cologne, subtle yet intoxicating. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, voice smooth, teasingly casual. She hesitated, heart racing. The rational part of her screamed to say no, to maintain some semblance of control. But the impulsive part, the part that had already led her to a reckless kiss earlier, nudged her toward him. "Sure," she managed, voice barely above a whisper. He slid into the seat across from her, careful not to appear too forward, yet somehow commanding the space between them. "You're braver than I expected," he said lightly, a hint of amusement in his tone. She blinked, unsure if he was teasing or complimenting her, or maybe both. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, though her mind raced. Could he sense the tiny rebellion in her heart? The impulsive choices she made just for a moment of thrill? He leaned back slightly, hands relaxed on the table. "You acted without thinking, and yet, it wasn't reckless. There's honesty in it, a kind of daring that's rare." His gaze held hers, steady and unwavering, and she felt an almost dizzying pull toward him. Her pulse pounded in her ears, but even as the words sank in, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling her, something just beneath the surface. And deep down, a small, anxious voice whispered that the truth might change everything she thought she knew about this unexpected, magnetic stranger. The cafe seemed to fade around her, the hum of conversation and clinking cups reduced to a distant buzz. She couldn't look away from him, from the calm, unreadable expression on his face. There was a quiet intensity in his eyes that made her stomach twist in anticipation, and a little dread. Then he spoke, his voice low, deliberate. "There's something I should tell you," he said, leaning forward slightly. Her heart skipped. She nodded, suddenly aware that her impulsive courage earlier had put her in a position she wasn't entirely prepared for. "Yes," she whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not exactly who you think I am," he said, his lips curling into a faint, almost mischievous smile. "In fact, I'm the one you've been working for all this time." Her eyes widened, disbelief making her drop the spoon she had been nervously twisting in her hands. The cafe noise seemed to rush back all at once, the chatter, the espresso machine, the barista calling out an order. She blinked, trying to process the words. "Wait, what?" she stammered. He chuckled softly, leaning back in his chair, calm and almost amused by her reaction. "Yes, I'm your CEO. The one approving your projects, reviewing your reports, the one you thought was just, distant, unreachable." Her mind raced, rewinding every interaction, every email, every fleeting glance she had thought was meaningless. The casual comments, the subtle guidance, even the praise, it all suddenly made sense. The thrill of the earlier kiss, the strange connection she felt, it wasn't just chance. It had always been him. I didn't know," she managed to say, her voice barely audible. A mix of embarrassment, awe, and something else, something she didn't quite name, churned inside her. "I just acted without thinking." He reached across the table, placing a hand near hers, careful but deliberate. "And that's exactly what I admire," he said softly. "There's honesty in it, a kind of fearlessness that's rare. Most people would hesitate, hide, overthink. You were real." Her cheeks flushed, and despite the whirlwind of emotions, shock, confusion, a strange thrill, she couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. There was no anger, no judgment, just understanding, and something more, something unspoken that hung between them, electric and undeniable. For the first time, she saw him not just as a distant authority figure, but as a man, complex, human, and unexpectedly connected to her in a way that was impossible to ignore. In that moment, the line between professional and personal blurred completely, leaving her breathless and aware that her life, and her heart, would never feel ordinary again.